He came home early and found out he was the other guy. The airport still smelled like burnt coffee and jet fuel when I sprinted through arrivals, clutching a bouquet that looked as travel-worn as I felt. 3 weeks in Phoenix, closing a client felt like 3 months away from Emily, and every FaceTime call had ended with both of us counting down to Friday night. My boss cut the trip short, an early win, so I booked the red eye, wanting to be the kind of boyfriend rom-coms laugh at, the guy who can't wait one more sunrise to kiss his girl. I didn't text her. A surprise only works if it lands before the echo of, "I'm on my way." It was 20 past midnight when the Uber slid to a stop outside our apartment complex in Arlington. The building was hushed except for the cicadas buzzing like static. I crept up the stairs, shoes in one hand, keys in the other, already forming the mental snapshot of Emily waking to me crawling into bed, whispering, "Scoot over." I unlocked the door with surgical slowness, eased inside, and let the darkness swallow me. That's when I heard it, her laugh. A soft, airy burst that melted me every time it echoed through our place. Except it wasn't echoing from the bedroom. It drifted in from the balcony. No TV glow, no FaceTime delay. A real, live conversation, and a low male baritone answering her back. Heartbeat in my throat, I padded across the hardwood toward the sliding glass door. The curtains were half drawn, but the fairy lights we strung in May spilled warm gold over the patio table. Wine bottle sweating, 2 glasses, a candle flickering like it knew something I didn't. Emily sat there in her oversized Grey's Anatomy hoodie, my hoodie, ankles tucked beneath her, playing absently with the stem of her glass. Across from her, a guy about my age, square jaw, mariner's cap backward, leaning in like he'd known her laughter longer than I had. I pushed the door. It rattled. Emily's head snapped up, and for one bullet-time second no one breathed. Her eyes did the math. Red-eye arrival, broken promise, surprise turned ambush. The other guy glanced at me, then at her, his smile folding. Emily set her glass down with surgeon precision. "I thought we had 2 more days." That was all she said. Not, "Jake, let me explain." Not, "It's not what it looks like." Just the cold calculation of a flight schedule misread. I set the wilted bouquet on the kitchen counter like laying flowers on a grave, turned, and walked back out the front door, shoes still in hand. Gravity doubled on every step. I stepped into the corridor, heartbeat still punching walls in my ears, and the night smelled suddenly like somebody else's apartment building. Foreign, chemical, not ours. Down one flight, then another. My socks soaked up invisible grit from the concrete stairs. My brain kept looping Emily's line, distorted like a scratched vinyl. 2 more days. 2 more days. That phrase sounded less like disappointment and more like logistics, as if my absence were a rental car she intended to return before the late fee kicked in. Outside, the Virginia summer pressed heavy and wet. Street lamps hummed while June bugs dive-bombed their glass casings. I sat on the hood of my Civic, bouquetless hands trembling, phone vibrating like a lie detector in my pocket. Emily's contact photo, sunset selfie from Corolla Beach, flashed 3 times, then went dark. I watched the notification stack. "Emily, hey babe, call me, please." I didn't answer. Instead, memory reeled like a malfunctioning projector. First date at a Nationals game where she pretended to love baseball. The IKEA Saturday assembling our first couch while arguing over instructions translated from Swedish. That Sunday morning in March she danced in the kitchen to an 80s playlist, hair in a messy knot, waving a spatula like a microphone. Those images felt rented now, as if I'd borrowed someone else's nostalgia and the owner had come to reclaim it. Another ping. Mason, my best friend and unofficial therapist, lit up the screen. Emily must have texted him. Crisis PR move. I silenced it all. The only sound I allowed was the chirp of crickets and the dull clack of my pulse in my jaw. I tried to picture what was happening upstairs. Were they scrambling, him stuffing excuses into his pockets, her rehearsing explanations? Or maybe they were just sitting there, still across that table, staring at the half-burned candle like 2 actors who'd forgotten the next line. The thought almost made me laugh, and the absurdity of that impulse scared me. My key fob slipped from my palm and clattered onto asphalt, scaring a feral cat from beneath the dumpster. The sudden noise jarred me into action. I opened the trunk, tossed my suitcase inside with a hollow thud, and yanked it shut. The sound echoed off stucco walls, final and public, like a door slammed in a quiet house. Then footsteps, rapid, unsteady, on the staircase behind me. Sneakers skidding. I turned, half expecting Emily, half ready for no one. But it was the guy from the balcony, mariner's cap now in his hand like a white flag. He slowed when our eyes met, breathless, chest heaving. "Wait," he panted, voice raw with confusion rather than guilt. "Man, can we talk? I swear I didn't know she had a boyfriend." For one surreal second, the universe rewound. His face, open, alarmed, looked less like a villain and more like someone who'd just discovered a trapdoor underfoot. I shut the trunk slowly, the last echo fading into the cicada chorus, and stood beneath the sodium light, wondering how many realities Emily had sold tonight, and which one of us had just bought the bigger lie. I folded my arms, unsure whether to swing or sympathize. The stranger ran a hand through hair, flattened by his ball cap, eyes scanning my expression as though hunting for a safe sentence. "I'm Tyler." The name meant nothing. But when he added, "We've been seeing each other about 6 months. The night tilted. 6 months ago, Emily and I were ring shopping downtown, tracing circles of platinum under showcase lights while joking about whose ring size was bigger. I felt my tongue go numb. Tyler dug his phone out and, with trembling fingers, scrolled to a message thread labeled with a single heart emoji. The last text from Emily, sent 15 minutes before I walked in, read, "Can't wait to show you the new pasta place this weekend." No mentions of travel. No mention of me. I realized I'd never been in someone else's crime scene before. "Listen," he said, voice shaking. "She told me she was single, moved here from Charlotte last year, just settling in. I never even saw inside until tonight. We always ate out or—" He trailed, embarrassed. "I thought she wanted to take it slow." The irony hit hard enough to bruise. A laugh tumbled out of me. Dry, hollow. "Slow, right?" Tyler leaned against the streetlight, the yellow glow carving exhaustion into his face. "I'm not here to fight. What do we do?" She lied to both of us. A police cruiser idled at the intersection, indifferent. I kicked a pebble into a storm drain, hearing it ping down the metal throat. "I don't know what we do," I admitted. "I was going to ask her to move in. Officially." "That suitcase?" I gestured to the trunk. "Half of it's gifts from the trip. I learned how to make mesquite barbecue sauce because she said she loved Smoke Shack in Austin." Tyler's shoulders slumped. "I drove 3 hours from Richmond to surprise her, brought tickets to a Mariners Orioles game next month because she'd never been to Seattle." He laughed darkly. "Turns out she hasn't." The absurd symmetry hit me. 2 men showing up unannounced, both thinking grand romantic gestures would score extra points, both discovering we were bench warmers in a game we thought we'd started. Emily hadn't been juggling one life, she'd been spinning 2, maybe more, keeping plates aloft with travel itineraries and carefully rationed truths. My phone buzzed again. "Please come back up. I can explain everything." The bubbling ellipsis came and went like an unstable heartbeat. Tyler's screen lit simultaneously. Whatever explanation waited upstairs no longer belonged to either of us. "I'm gonna go," I said, unlocking the driver's door. "I've got a brother in Baltimore. Couch is better than this parking lot." I hesitated. "Need a ride?" He shook his head. "I'll call an Uber." He extended a hand. The handshake felt bizarrely formal, like we'd just signed the treaty of shared betrayal. As I buckled in, Tyler knocked on the window. "For what it's worth," he said, eyes earnest, "you seem like a decent guy. She doesn't deserve either of us." I swallowed the flare of emotion. "Same to you. We weren't the B team, man. We were both the side guy. That's on her." He stepped back and I started the engine. The dashboard clock flipped to 1:13 a.m. I pulled away, watching the apartment recede in the rearview mirror until the fairy lights on the balcony shrank to a constellation I couldn't name. For a moment I imagined Emily standing there alone, 2 half-empty wine glasses between her and the night, realizing the lies had finally run out of runway. The road opened south toward the interstate, headlights carving ribbons through the humid dark. I didn't have closure, revenge, or even my own bed, but I had movement, and tonight that felt like the first true thing in miles. Somewhere beyond the horizon, sunrise would split the sky, indifferent and honest. I pressed the gas a little harder, ready to meet it head on. The drive to Baltimore blurred into a reel of highway signs and late-night talk radio callers confessing problems that suddenly felt tame compared to mine. By the time I reached my brother Matt's row house in Canton, dawn was smearing pink across the harbor cranes. Matt answered the door in pajama pants and a Ravens tee, eyes half open. One look at my face and suitcase, and he stepped aside without a question, just slapped my shoulder the way older brothers do when words might break something fragile. I slept on his futon until noon, woke to the smell of burnt Pop-Tarts and the muffled thump of ESPN. My phone lay on the coffee table, screen lit with 28 unread texts. 26 from Emily, 2 from an unknown 703 number. Tyler. I ignored hers and opened his. Tyler. Morning. Couldn't sleep. Need to figure out if last night was real life or some social experiment pilot? You free to talk later? Before I could answer, Matt dropped onto the armrest with a beer. Breakfast of sympathetic siblings. You gonna tell me why you showed up at 3 a.m. looking like you'd seen a ghost? I told him everything between swigs of flat root beer, skipping none of the humiliating details. Matt listened, jaw tight, then muttered, "Man, that's colder than Lambo in January." He grabbed his laptop. "Let's see what social media says. Cheaters leave digital fingerprints." Within 10 minutes we discovered Emily had a second Instagram account, private, 212 followers, where her bio read, "PNW Soul in a DMV World." Scroll a bit, and there she was posing with Tyler at a pumpkin patch last fall, captioned, "When you meet someone who feels like home." I felt my insides twist. The timestamp was the same weekend she'd told me she was visiting her cousin in Pittsburgh. Another post showed her solo at a Richmond brewery. The date lined up with the Sunday I thought she was visiting her parents in Delaware. Matt scrolled further, whistled. "Dude, she's got pictures from a cabin in Shenandoah, New Year's Eve, champagne, fireworks. I thought you spent NYE with her family?" "I did," I croaked. "She left at 10 saying her mom wasn't feeling well." The memory hit like whiplash, the rushed hug, her promise to FaceTime at midnight. She'd called from a dark porch, fireworks popping somewhere off-screen. I'd assumed small-town boredom. Turns out it was mountaintop romance. I finally texted Tyler asking if he could hop on FaceTime. He answered instantly from a Starbucks parking lot, eyes red-rimmed from no sleep. When Matt leaned into frame, Tyler gave a tired half-smile. "Guess we're forming a support group." We compared timelines. Every weekend Emily claimed to be with friends from college. Tyler believed she was helping her elderly aunt settle into assisted living. My business trips? That was prime date night real estate. Tyler's baseball away games as a minor league scout. Her cue to play the devoted girlfriend on my couch, binge-watching shows she pretended to hate. At some point, Matt toggled his screen share to a spreadsheet he'd built. 2 columns, Jake and Tyler, dates aligned like opposing armies. The overlaps were dizzying. Valentine's Day, candlelit dinner with him. My birthday cookout. She left early for a work crisis, showed up in Tyler's feed at an escape room an hour later. I stared at the matrix of betrayal until the cells blurred. How does someone keep that many lies straight? Tyler rubbed his temples. Maybe they practice. Matt clicked a final tab, Emily's Venmo history. Payments to an account labeled KDM Dog Walking popped up every other week. Under the note field, "Thanks for covering." Matt scrolled Katie's profile, full name Caitlin Monroe, same city, same co-working space, Emily sometimes used. A decoy roommate? A lie alibi service? The conspiracy spiraled, my phone buzzed, Emily again. "Jake, please talk to me. You owe me that." My thumb hovered over block. Instead I typed, "We'll be in Arlington tomorrow at 6 p.m, apartment. You, me, Tyler, no more lies." I hit send before courage could bail. Tyler nodded at the plan. "I'll drive up. I want answers too." Matt cracked his knuckles. "You want me there?" "Think we need neutral ground," I said. "But can you stick around DC in case it goes sideways?" He clapped my shoulder. "Say the word." That night we crashed early. I lay staring at the ceiling fan, mind spinning with replayed moments now recast under fluorescent truth. The first "I love you" whispered in the glow of traffic lights. Was Tyler hearing it the next evening? Was there yet another guy rehearsing lines tonight, clueless that his role was understudy to a ghost? Sleep came in fitful snippets. At 3 a.m. I woke from a dream of 2 identical Emilys walking opposite directions down a hall, each beckoning, each vanishing when I chose. I sat up, heart racing, and opened notes. I typed every question I needed answered. Why us? How many others? When did the lying start? Was anything real? I left space under each, like an exam waiting for a student who might never show. Morning arrived, metallic and gray. Rain hammered the row house windows as if the sky itself wanted a front row seat. Tyler texted at 7, on the road, ETA 5:30. Emily replied to my ultimatum with a single word, okay. By noon, Matt handed me a spare Ravens hoodie, armor of hometown resilience. We drove down I-95 in tense silence, windshield wipers drumming a countdown. Traffic thickened outside D.C., red taillights stringing like warning beacons. Somewhere around College Park, an idea took root, one that felt equal parts justice and self-sabotage. I glanced at Matt. What if we record the conversation? Not to post online, just so she can't rewrite the story later. He shrugged. Virginia's a one-party consent state, but you sure you want that memory forever? I want the truth somewhere I can replay, in case memory tries to heal by erasing. He didn't argue. Instead, he fiddled with the dash cam, set it to audio capture, and handed me a fresh SD card. The weight of it felt heavier than the bouquet had the night before. We rolled into Arlington at 5:17, storm clouds curling low over glass condos. Tyler's sedan was already in the visitor lot, engine idling. He climbed out, gave me a tight nod. Even soaked in road grime and questions, he looked steadier than I felt. Elevator up, hallway still, door looming like the final boss of a game we never signed up to play. I slipped the key in, my key, and pushed. Inside smelled of lavender candles and stale hesitation. Emily stood by the kitchen island, hair washed, no makeup, wearing the sweatshirt she'd borrowed from me a dozen Sunday mornings. Her eyes flicked from me to Tyler, widened at the sight of Matt hovering behind with folded arms. She opened her mouth. I pressed record on my phone, laid it face down on the counter, red light blinking. Emily swallowed. So this is an ambush? No, I said, voice steadier than my pulse. An intervention. We want the truth. All of it. She exhaled, shoulders sagging as though setting down invisible luggage. Then sit. Because the truth is complicated. We didn't sit. Tyler leaned against the pantry door, arms crossed. Matt hovered near the exit, silent guardian. Rain hammered the balcony glass, drowning out everything but our own breathing. Emily's gaze drifted to the flickering fairy lights outside. Still strung, still mocking. She closed her eyes. You both think you're the side guy, but that's only half the story. She looked directly at me, then Tyler. There's someone else you haven't met. Emily's confession hung in the air like a live wire. Rain battered the windows, thunder rolling behind her words as though the weather itself were clearing its throat. There's someone else you haven't met, she repeated, voice flat, almost clinical. His name is Connor. He's my fiancé. Fiancé. The syllables detonated in my chest. No dramatic echo, just a dull, ripping sound. The way Velcro tears away tiny fibers you barely notice until they're gone. My legs threatened to fold. Tyler's eyes darted to me, then to Emily, as though checking whether he'd misheard. Matt's jaw clenched hard enough to pulse along his cheek. Emily went on, words tumbling like pebbles down a slope. Connor was her college sweetheart, stationed with the Coast Guard in Astoria, Oregon. They'd gotten engaged last Christmas. New Year's Eve in Shenandoah had been their secret East Coast celebration before he shipped out again. She loved him, she said, but long distance felt like living on layaway. So to fill the empty months, she rented a studio in Arlington, telling Connor it was just a sublet for an internship. That's when she met me at a friend's game night, and Tyler at a co-working coffee bar 2 weeks later. You both gave me different pieces of what I missed with Connor, she said, gaze fixed on her clasped hands. Jake, with you it felt safe, quiet nights cooking, planning a future I could touch. Tyler, you were adventure, the road trips, the spontaneity. I told myself borrowing love wasn't stealing if I gave it back before Connor returned. I thought of the bouquet wilted in a trash can somewhere, of listening to her hum while she stirred my grandmother's chili recipe, promising she'd never felt so steady. Borrowing love? No, she'd taken futures off the rack, worn them until the seams frayed, then stuffed them behind newer dreams. Tyler's voice cracked. Does Connor know about us? She shook her head. He thinks I'm monogamous. I plan to end it with both of you next month before he got leave. Matt stepped forward, eyes hard. So we're just placeholders on your calendar? Emily blinked, tears finally spilling, but sympathy wouldn't come. I pressed stop on the phone's recorder. The red light winked out, its job done. I pocketed the evidence, the unvarnished, unrewritable truth. You didn't just lie, I said, words level, surprisingly calm. You auditioned us for roles in a story we never agreed to be in. That's not complicated, Emily. That's cruelty wearing strategy as perfume. She reached for me, automatic, desperate, but I stepped back. Tyler did the same, arms folded like a barrier. Rain eased to a whisper against the glass, the quiet amplifying every breath. What happens now? She asked. Her question flew to Matt first. He answered by opening the door. Now you deal with your choices. Tyler nodded, slipping past her without another word. I followed, suitcase rolling behind me like a loyal dog. In the hall, elevator doors slid open. Inside, fluorescent light felt cleansing, almost sterile. As we descended, Tyler let out a shaky laugh. Fiancé, can you believe it? I could, and that scared me, that my capacity for disbelief had been exhausted in a single night. What do you do? I asked. Get therapy, he said with a wry half-smile. Maybe learn to Google people better. We reached the lobby, stepped into the damp evening. The storm clouds were breaking apart, amber streetlights reflecting off puddles. Matt pulled up curbside in his Jeep, engine idling like a patient friend. Tyler and I exchanged numbers, survivors swapping intel after a crash. He squeezed my shoulder. Hey man, we were side guys, but at least we found out before the credits rolled. I managed a grim smile. Take care, Tyler. He jogged toward his sedan. I climbed into the Jeep. Matt didn't speak until we'd merged onto the George Washington Parkway, D.C. Skyline glinting ahead. You okay? No, I said, honesty tasting strangely clean. But I will be. I watched the monuments glide past, the Capitol Dome, the Washington Monument, structures that had stood through wars and scandals still shining. Maybe hearts could too. My phone buzzed once more. Unknown Oregon area code. Connor? I silenced it, turning the screen face down. Someday maybe, the whole truth would reach him. But tonight I needed distance, not justice. Traffic thinned. Matt flicked on the radio. Tom Petty's Learning to Fly faded in, static-laced but perfect. Wind from the cracked window smelled of wet asphalt and possibility. I rested my head back, eyes on the dark ribbon of road unfurling toward a dawn I'd greet on my own terms. No borrowed timelines, no rehearsed goodbyes. Somewhere up ahead, the future waited. Unassigned, unpromised, undeniably mine.